Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for joining us this week. Episode number 72 as we get ready for the 152nd running of the Belmont Stakes coming up Saturday. It is the start of the Triple Crown. Not always the start, but it's not necessarily out of the ordinary to have things out of order. We'll talk more about that later on. It is a 1.125 mile race. It's $1 million purse. There's some good horses in it, including Tiz the Law, who many feel is the best 3-year-old anyway. If the Derby had been run at its regular time, he probably would have been considered the favorite. Sol Volante is in there as well. Then, of course, Todd Pletcher has a couple of horses. Pletcher loves this race. He's done so well in it. We're going to talk more about that, and we're going to talk with a man who won it last year, Mark Casse. He did it with Sir Winston last year. He brings in Tapit to win this year, and the connections have paid an extra $15,000 supplement to get this horse in this race. That's the confidence they have. And we'll talk to the man who's calling it for NBC Sports, Larry Collmus, the great race caller. That coming up later. Right now, let's welcome in on lead guitar, as always, Ben Chaffins. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Kenny.
And our researcher extraordinaire, Mr. Thomas Kenny. Thomas, how are you?
Doing good, fellas.
You've been going through the copious notes that we have getting ready for this Belmont Stakes, and there's some nice interesting tidbits that even if you're not a big horse racing fan and you're watching the race on NBC, the coverage starts at 3 Eastern time, by the way, on Saturday, you might have some fun just knowing this about a few of the horses, Thomas.
That's right. It's not your typical Belmont this year, thanks to a number of factors. We're running 1.125 miles this year instead of the normal distance. And, basically, it's a completely different race because 1.5 miles, as you know, is a long way to go for those horses.
Yeah, and probably everybody, I don't think there'd be anybody running their horse, a good horse at 1.5 miles right now. So the fact that the Belmont adapted and changed things made a big difference. And there's going to be some familiar players in there. We talked about Todd Pletcher. Among the horses he has is a good horse named Dr. Post, as Pletcher goes for his 4th Belmont. And he's owned by a guy that's kind of interesting, Thomas. He's an NHL guy for all you hockey fans out there.
Yeah, that's right. He owns the Panthers, I believe.
Yeah. Vinny Viola, who also had a part of Always Dreaming. And now you're sitting there thinking, what's the best birthday present you've ever received? What would be that for you guys? You have one that's like the best birthday present ever?
Don't know. The one that stuck with me the longest is definitely a pair of sunglasses.
You said, how long have you had them?
About 4 years now.
No, that's maybe a record. Ben, how about you?
Well, my first instinct was to go with my wisdom teeth getting taken out, but then that wasn't very good. But the fun that came before then with the game system was pretty nice to get that to go with that week of pain.
How would you like to have a $20,000 horse, part interest in a horse for $20,000 given to you? That'd be a pretty nice birthday present, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Especially a horse that's actually legit, that's a good horse, the horse Sol Volante. And, Thomas, that was the deal with the trainer giving it to his daughter, Patrick Biancone giving it to his daughter, Andy, for a $20,000 gift. She's part owner now.
That's right. It's hard to imagine that kind of money, at least for me personally.
Well, the thing is, not only is he a good horse, I think he has a legitimate shot. He certainly will be one of the probably 2 or 3 horses to take a look at that's right behind Tiz the Law that's running this week. And as we talk all the time, Linda Rice has never won. No female has ever trained a horse that's won a Triple Crown race. Linda Rice will be trying to do this with a horse, Max Player. He's not raced very much, but his owner knows how to get to the winner's circle at Belmont Park in the Belmont Stakes, Thomas.
Yeah, that's right, Kenny.
George Hall did it in 2011 with Ruler on Ice. You might remember that horse. He's 24-1. He pulled the upset in there. That was the year of that Animal Kingdom had won and Shackelford had won. And it was like a Graham Motion. Dale Romans were kind of battling it out there and who's going to win the Belmont, the rubber match. And it turned out to be Ruler on Ice at 24-1. So some of the things to keep an eye on in what is going to be, I think, a fun and interesting Belmont Stakes. The man who has a great shot at it, trying for back-to-back Belmont wins. It hasn't been done since 1996. Mark Casse joins us talking about Tap It to Win, the Hall of Fame trainer, up next on the Horse Racing Show. This is the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice and delighted to have this man back with us. He's been on several times. The first time, I believe, though, we've had him on since I can say, here he is, Hall of Fame trainer, Mark Casse. Welcome back, Mark.
Thanks, Kenny. That sounds good. I like that.
I like that, too. Now, you were already in the Canadian Hall of Fame with all the great things you've done there. And now to be in this Hall of Fame here at Saratoga, New York, National Museum and Racing Hall of Fame. Well, what's this been like over the last few weeks? The congratulations, et cetera.
Oh, well, it's been wonderful. You know, I've so many friends and colleagues that have reached out and told me congratulations. I mean, I've had people contact me that I hadn't heard from in a long time, and you know, lots that even are outside of the horse racing world. So yeah, I'm extremely proud of it, and you know, for me, it just said you've done well, not just once or twice, but a lot of times. So that's important.
Yeah, there's something about being a Hall of Famer. You don't really have to qualify anything, do you? If somebody tells me they're the Hall of Fame in any sport, even if I'm not familiar with the sport, I know they were special.
Yeah, that means that you're one of the best. So you're right about that. I saw some baseball coaches the other day, and they introduced me. One introduced the other, and he said he's a Hall of Fame trainer. And yeah, you're right. It does sound nice, and it does say, hey, you're pretty good at what you do.
You know, something else that sounds nice is you're the defending champ, so to speak, of the Belmont Stakes coming up, having done it last year with Sir Winston. And that's a kind of a nice feeling. And you come in trying it again with Tap It to Win.
Yeah, it is. Actually, somebody brought it up, and I hadn't realized it, really thought about it, but we got a shot to win 3 classics in a row. Obviously, we won the Preakness and the Belmont last year. I asked if that is considered a Triple Crown, but I don't think it is.
Well, you know, you could spin it and make it that way. I mean, there's some pretty good marketing guys, as we know, who have been trainers in the past that would probably turned it that way.
Exactly.
And, you know, you are going for something that just going through the notes, getting ready for my preparation for this Belmont Stakes this weekend, is Wayne Lucas was the last to win back-to-back. He actually did it back-to-back-to-back, 94 through 96. He won 3 straight. But since then, no one's ever won back-to-back Belmonts. You know, that's at first I thought, well, and then I started thinking, no, who would have done back-to-back Belmonts? That's a
Woody did it a long time ago.
Yeah, you got to go back to the 80s with Woody Stevens.
Right. Yeah.
What is it about this race? We know it's going to be different. It's 1 1/8 miles, and this is the start of the Triple Crown. But it's still a Triple Crown race, and it's still 1 1/8 miles, and you don't know how it's going to be. And you may have the best horse in the country, and 'tis the law running in it, the best 3-year-old. So I think, to me, it looks like a very competitive race.
I agree, Kenny. You know, we've got some freshness on our side, even though we're coming back kind of quick. But the other thing that I like so much about it is, you know, a lot of horses don't like Belmont Park. This horse obviously does. This is home for him. This is where he's been stabled for some time. And I tell you, Johnny's very confident in him too, and that always makes me feel good.
And it's you know, it is a big turnaround. 16 days ago he ran, but he's perfect this year. What's been the biggest difference from Tap It to Win this year and last year? And I know there were some disappointments last year, and so maybe scratch your head.
Well, he has a pretty good. He's especially in the one. So what happened? We took him. When we got him from Live Oak, they told me they thought, you know, that he was something special. We ran him in Toronto, and my assistant there, David Adams. Yeah, we were surprised he got beat actually the first time out. He said, "I think this horse is pretty good." So we brought him to Saratoga, and I breezed him, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to run him." And he ran, and he won impressively. And I told Mrs. Weber at that point in time, I said, "We might be able to win the Breeders' Cup with this horse." Then I was talking about the juvenile, and I said, "The only issue is we're going to have to speed up the process. So normally you would have liked to have come back maybe with a 7/8 or something like that, and let him learn to let him settle a little. But we didn't have that option, so we went to the breeders futurity, and he broke a little slow, and he's coming off the sprints, and he just didn't. He wanted to run off with Tyler. He almost clipped heels in the first turn, and he just did everything wrong, and he didn't run well. So we brought him back, and I just thought it was too bad to be true. And I ran him back in the street sense, and what happened was he hit his ankle coming out of the gate, and hit it badly, bad enough that for a few weeks he couldn't hardly walk. And it turned out where he hit it, he hit the bone so hard that the little piece of the bone died, and we had to go in and operate on him. And but that downtime when he was down recuperating from his injury, he grew up a lot. And since he's come back, he's been a machine. You watch him go, by, and you understand why he's a good horse.
Talking with Mark Casse, Tap It to Win is going in the Belmont Stakes this Saturday and supplemented for $15,000. So obviously, Charlotte Weber, the owner, you guys feel pretty confident to decide that it's worth putting some money up to try to win this $1 million race.
Oh, I expect him to run extremely well. It's not an easy race. We probably, as you said pretty earlier, we're running against maybe the best 3-year-old in the country right now. So it's not going to be easy, but I think when the dust clears, you'll have known he was there.
Well, we know that Mark Casse is always there. When he shows up for a big race, pay attention, and he is trying for 3 consecutive Triple Crown race wins. I think I said that right, didn't I? War of Will last year, of course, the Preakness, Sir Winston, and the Belmont, and he's trying for back-to-back Belmonts. And that in itself, Mark, just to have a horse, especially this year, as crazy as everything is, to be in the hunt for a Triple Crown race is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it just happens to work out this way. If it wasn't for all the craziness, there would be no way this horse would have made the Belmont. So it's an interesting story. I also now and I might be able to strike gold twice in that. Enforcible's coming back extremely strong right now. He needed some time after the Louisiana Derby, but he's back, and I plan on running him in the Bluegrass.
So that'll be coming up in mid-July, and I think also one of the stories out of the Belmont in the last few days is that Steve Asmussen decided that Bason's also going to run the Bluegrass, and it's kind of funny how some of this is shaping up now, isn't it? It's getting exciting again. You're getting the horses that are still healthy that are going to be going head-to-head in some big races here this summer.
I'll agree. This is going to be, the Belmont's going to be a great race. The Bluegrass is going to be a great race. I'm sure the Haskell will do well, and it's going to be interesting where New York decides to put the Travers, because it could be the final prep for the Derby, I would think. So we'll see.
We're talking with Mark Casse. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the Hall of Fame trainer right after this. Don't leave. This is the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad that you're with us. Delighted to have Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse with us, trying to win his second consecutive Belmont Stakes with Tap It to Win. Was anybody but you surprised with Sir Winston winning it last year? You know, you had a bit of a long shot out there, and he came through impressively.
You know, Kenny, I didn't think that, and I think a lot of people had an idea that Sir Winston would had a chance. Excuse me, I'm sorry, but you know, there's a little bit of similarities here with Tap It to Win and Sir Winston in that they both, show a real fondness for Belmont, and a lot of horses don't. And so when you get that, pay attention to it. And I'm hoping it'll work again, this weekend. But I wasn't surprised at all with Sir Winston winning. Everybody was coming around that week, and of course we had War of Will, and I was excited about running him. But I would say to everybody, don't leave Sir Winston out.
And, you talked about the track at Belmont. It is so different, I think, Mark, from about any track you're going to run on in the U.S., isn't it? And even at 1 1/8 miles, obviously we're not doing the 1.5 miles for the Belmont, but 1 1/8 miles over Big Sandy can still be a little tiring, I would imagine.
It can be, but the one thing that's intriguing for us and why we're running it too is, and it's the only place you're going to get it in North America, is 1 1/8 is one turn. So, that's interesting.
So I was going to say for the fans, but the fans will be seeing it on TV, so it really won't matter. If you were in the grandstand, it's a long way to look over there at the starting gate.
long ways. Yeah.
No matter how many times I've been there, and it's really going to be interesting for me to see an empty grandstand, and I don't know what, a couple of dozen people maybe will be there, with some of the trainers and the grooms and some of the personnel from NYRA. But, to see that empty, that's going to be something. But you've seen some empty racetracks this year, right? I mean, you've been around.
Oh yeah.
Fans,
you just get, you're starting to get used to it. You don't like it, but you get used to it. I think the one that'll be the toughest for me to take is, Saratoga.
Yeah. Do the trainers talk among themselves, or the owners talk to you about hopes that by Saratoga time, maybe a few fans, maybe they'll ration it off, that, you can get a few in, or do you even think about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I had that discussion last night with Mrs. Weber, talking about whether we thought by maybe Saratoga that at least some owners, would be able to go to the races. So hopefully.
I've had a couple of jockeys tell me that in some ways they actually miss the fans either cheering for them or razzing them even. They just miss they miss the human contact when they're coming out or coming back from the racetrack.
I'm sure.
Now, as far as this being Father's Day weekend, I have to talk about the legacy of the Cassie family. Your father, Norman, was so respected in the business. I know that's how you got in the business. And now your son, Norm, is carrying on in your legacy. Also, he's out on his own doing well as a trainer. It must be real special, I think, for you and for your son. And just this, we talk about bloodlines in horses. The bloodlines in the human side as well is impressive on the Cassie family.
It is, absolutely. And, I'm very proud of him. Very proud. It's interesting, though. You're seeing a lot of that now where, you see Brett Jones taking over kind of for his dad. There's a few different big farms now. The sons and the daughters are taking over, and it's nice to see. So it makes me very proud and very happy to see Norman doing well.
And of course, with your family, it was also in the business side of it. But I'm sure, like you, like me, with my father, there's something about a sports bond between a father-son or a father-daughter that's kind of different from any other bond, to me in many ways. I grew up watching sports because of my dad. I got involved in sports because of him.
Well, that was something that my father and I shared so much when I was younger, the love of the sport. And we would go, I've often said about us, riding in the horse van from Ocala to Louisville for the Kentucky Derby to watch Secretariat run. And I've often said that, some of my fondest moments with my dad were, of course, with horse racing. Most of them, actually.
Yeah. And now this weekend, I will see you from afar, won't I? I will be at Belmont, but you may not be there.
Yeah, right now it's not 100% sure whether I'm going to make it there or not. Just not sure yet.
Well, I think a lot of people are questioning. Some people are going to question anything, aren't they? I have some purists that are upset about not being at a mile and a half. To me, the fact that they're getting the race in says a lot. That there will be a Belmont, and there will be a Derby, and there will be a Preakness is impressive. Fans
that's
or no
way,
fans.
Yeah, and that's the way I feel about it. I've been asked a lot about it. I said I'm just happy there is a Belmont. I'm happy there is. Hopefully, we think we know there's going to be a Belmont. We're hoping there's going to be a Preakness, and we're still hoping that there's going to be a Kentucky Derby. It doesn't have to happen. So, look at what's going on with other sports. Who knows what's going to happen with baseball? So you're not going to hear me complain about that. It's I still our family, we took the quarantine very serious. We have my wife's father, my wife Tina, her father lives with us, and he's not a healthy man, and if any of us get it or get sick, it's probably the end for him. So we've taken this very serious, and that's the biggest reason you won't see me.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And getting back to some of the people are going to be a critic no matter what about, well, wouldn't it be nice? It's awful they couldn't figure out a way to get some fans in there. Again, I come back to this. You'll be able to see the race on TV. I watched a NASCAR race the other day, and I'm not really a car racing aficionado, but it was just nice to see a live sport taking place. I didn't have to be there. I could turn the TV on.
I agree 100%, Kenny. And if me being there would make Tapit to Win run 1 inch faster, I'd be there. But it's just, what you have to look at what's most important. Of course, I'd love to be there, but I also, have to look at the rest of my family as well. And we're still we're being very cautious.
And the Hall of Fame ceremony is going to be a little different this year, the way I understand everything at Saratoga, right?
Well, there isn't going to be one.
Are they going to try to do it, though, by Zoom or anything like that?
No, I think the last thing I heard it's going to be the next year, which is good. I honestly would prefer they did it that way, because I would like to have some of my family members there. So, yeah. Hey, I've waited 40-some years. I can wait another year.
Well, you know what? You're still a Hall of Famer. You could just milk this for another good year.
Well, I thought about that. It takes longer. I have longer to write my speech, and hey, by the time they go to give it to me, it'll be new news again.
See, that's exactly right. You're not in a 24 cycle. You're in a year. You're going to be in a 2-year news cycle, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. So you always got to look at the bright spots.
You always do, and it's always a pleasure to catch up, and I really appreciate your time again, and good luck with Tapit to Win this weekend in the Belmont.
Thanks for having me, Kenny.
All right, Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse has a shot with Tapit to Win in the Belmont this weekend. More on the Horse Racing Show right after this. Welcome back into the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice, delighted that you're with us, and really glad to have this longtime friend of mine. So long, I don't even know how long that the great race announcer Larry Collmus and I go back, but he is the voice of the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup on NBC. You will hear his call of the Belmont Stakes this weekend, and Larry joins us now. Welcome back in, Larry.
Hey, Kenny, how you doing?
Good. What do we mean? I think maybe at Monmouth Park, maybe. I can't even remember. It's been so long ago. Possibly Monmouth.
It's been a long time, I'm sure. We've been at this for quite a while, and the last decade or so, we've seen a lot more of us with these NBC broadcasts, which is always a very good thing.
And, I'm glad that we're going to see the Belmont. I know it's going to be different. On site from NBC will be Brittany, Urton, you, and me. And everybody else is going to be spread out in the studio and at home. But some people have asked me, well, what's that going to be like? I said, well, it's going to be this. It's going to be a Triple Crown race. You don't know who's going to win. And it's a Belmont Stakes, and I'm glad they're having it, and that's the way I'm approaching it all.
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing an interview earlier, and somebody was asking me, how do you approach the race call of the Belmont Stakes? Do you treat it like the Belmont Stakes or like the Kentucky Derby? And I said, well, really neither, because it's so different in that it's a 1.125 mile race that's kicking off the Triple Crown in late June. It's completely different from anything else. I said, I'm basically treating it as the beginning of the Triple Crown, and we're going to have some fun with it.
And that's all we can do, isn't it? Because, there's going to be those, and I already in one interview I did that was asked, well, will it be the same Triple Crown? What if the winner of the Belmont, look, first off, winning the Triple Crown is tough. I'm going to say there's not going to be a Triple Crown winner, because you could say that most years and you'd be right, correct? I mean, there's not going to be a Triple Crown winner. How many years would we have been correct on that? But I do think it brings in some interesting mix this year when you consider it's going to be 77 days to the Derby from the Belmont. If a horse stays healthy and everybody stays right and they can win all three races, it'll be a different kind of Triple Crown, but it'll still be a heck of a feat.
You're right. And the other thing that people don't seem to realize is that before Secretariat, all the Triple Crowns were not the same as they are since Secretariat. That 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there were different schedules. Horses were, the races may have been out of order, or there were a different period of times between races. Not since Secretariat's Triple Crown win in 73 have the Triple Crown winners had this exact same schedule that we're all used to in the last, 50 years or so. So, all the other ones from the past, their schedules and the events of the Triple Crown were not the same. So, if you want to put a big asterisk next to this one, well, you have to put it next to all the other ones too.
Excellent point, as always, Larry. And, that is, everybody has to adapt these days. And, to me, the biggest thing is you're probably going to see the best 3-year-old in the country, Tis the Law, who most would have considered the best 3-year-old or one of the top 2 or 3 if the Derby had been run at its regular time. So the fact that he's still healthy and still going says a lot for trainer Barclay Tagg and this horse.
Absolutely, and what an easy horse to root for and hope for the best for. The connections of Saratoga Stable and Barclay Tagg, the same people that brought us Funny Side back in 2003 when they came in with the school bus, and unfortunately they won't be able to go to the races because owners aren't going to be allowed at this year's Belmont Stakes. So I think they're going to watch it from a restaurant in Saratoga, from what I understand, but that's going to keep them with a good view of their horse in the Belmont Stakes. He's just a neat horse, and another great part about that is Manny Franco, the jockey, is a guy that hasn't had these huge opportunities, but he's as talented as they come. So definitely a horse that I think a lot of people would be excited about if he won.
And another horse in there that intrigues me is Sol Volante, who ran so well, Patrick Biancone's horse.
Yep.
That maybe was a bit of a surprise to some, but he started off so well down in Florida. And, I think that would be another horse that would have probably been in most everybody's top 5 or 6 had the Derby been run when the Derby was scheduled this year. So whole point of all this is, you got a few stars still in the mix in this race.
Oh, you certainly do. Sole Volante, owned by the people that had Mucho Macho Man, if folks remember that horse, the Reeves Thoroughbred Racing Group. And Luca Panici, his jockey, is just a super nice guy who's been plying his trade in Florida for many, many years and doesn't get the opportunity to ride these top quality Triple Crown type horses. And that would be another great story for a guy like Luca to win a race like the Belmont Stakes. And, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Linda Rice, no relation, is trying to make history. We always talk about this every time there's a female in training a horse, because no female has ever trained the winner of a Triple Crown, race, and has a shot in Max Player that kind of is again one of those horses that I'll take another look at.
Yeah, he's one of those horses that is not too experienced, but only 3 starts, but he's coming along, and he's made steady improvement each and every time. And he broke his maiden at Parks, and then he had 2 strong wins, including the Withers. And he hasn't run since February, but he sure is trading really well coming up to the race. And that would be another great note if Linda Rice could pull off and make a little bit of history here in this race.
I guess they could still run a race if Todd Pletcher didn't have a horse in the Belmont, and now he's going to have a couple of them.
Yeah, he's going to have a couple of them for sure. Dr. Post in Farmington Road, and Dr. Post, he has just been super in his last couple of wins down at Gulfstream Park, and Farmington Road is the late closing horse for Todd, and having finished fourth in the Arkansas Derby, he looks like he might be a bit of a long shot in the race. But hey, they're both sons of Quality Road, who was one of my favorite horses, and there's nothing like a Todd Pletcher in the Belmont Stakes. I mean, that guy. This is of all the Triple Crown races, this is his for sure.
Yeah, I read where Todd said something about the only similarity he can draw this year in the race is that it's being run at Belmont Park.
I saw that. Yeah, I feel the same way.
About and we're talking with the great race caller Larry Collmus, who'll be calling the Belmont Stakes for NBC this weekend. And one of the things in there is one of the things in there is about this year's race. At that mile and an 8, that's going to be a long way. Thank goodness you've got good binoculars. That's a long way from the start.
It really is.
To the finish, that one, come around that one turn mile at Belmont. That's huge. That's like looking across, to me, almost 2 football fields.
I've been calling the races the last 5 years at Belmont, and that starting position is the farthest away of any of the starting positions from the grandstand at Belmont Park. You're almost on the training track where they start the race. And it's the polar opposite of how the Belmont usually is, with the starting gate right in front of the stands and the roar of the New York crowd getting the horses riled up as they go into the gate. The horses aren't going to hear anything this time because there's no crowd and they're nowhere near the stands anyway.
Yeah, and it's I said that's a good thing about it being on TV this year, isn't it? You'll get a really good view on TV of the starting gate, probably better than you'll get, certainly better than I'll get being down there probably at track level, I'm guessing.
I may even watch the start on TV. Who knows?
Well, I want to go back to one of the all-time great calls, and you know what I'm talking about. I call it the fog call of the Preakness, of Justified coming out of the fog literally, and how you called that race. I don't know if that was your best moment. You've had so many of them, but that certainly was one of them. And people still ask me, how did Larry do it? I said, because he's Larry. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that could have pulled it off.
Well, I give a whole lot of credit to a couple of different people. One is the director of the Triple Crown broadcasts on that particular day was Pierre Moussa, who does a great job with us, and he's the guy that picks all the camera shots that help me see, and then of course the cameramen who were able to follow the horses with their cameras, because if it wasn't for them, I would have had no shot, because I may have some powerful binoculars, Kenny, but they don't see through fog very well. And I give a lot of credit to them. They kept switching to shots. I think there was only one part when they were going around the turn where they had nothing. And I just sort of killed time for a little bit and just kind of gave the 3/4 mile fraction in as leisurely a fashion as I possibly could, and kind of waited until the horses got back into the picture. And that's the only really time I had to kill. Otherwise, it was all great camera work and directors picking the right shot.
That's what makes you so good. We're talking with Larry Collmus, who will get ready to call the Belmont Stakes this Saturday. More with Larry when we come back here on the Horse Racing Show. And welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad you're with us. Really delighted to have a longtime friend of mine. He is the race caller extraordinaire, Larry Collmus, who's getting ready to call this year's Belmont Stakes. And, Larry, I've enjoyed, at first I didn't, but then I kind of got into it with no sports out there. I've watched old NFL games, old baseball games, that I never thought I would watch that intently because I know the outcome, but I've gotten into it. And along those lines, it's been great watching the Triple Crown run and then the Breeders' Cup cap-off to get the Grand Slam of American Pharoah. Finally, the one, it was called the Series, and that is based on your great call of the Belmont when he was finally the one in winning the Triple Crown. It
was a lot of fun to watch. I was glued to the TV myself watching those races again because, like pretty much everybody, I didn't have a whole lot else to do. So I figured I'd hang out here, sit on the couch, and relive some of the better moments of something I've had a chance to be a part of, and especially watching him win the Triple Crown that day at Belmont Park, and then watching the Breeders' Cup Classic. That was just so much fun. And then, of course, the rain at Pimlico that day. Remember just getting absolutely drenched. We all did, and
I remember that well.
It was just so much fun. To be part of that ride with American Pharoah. He led us along with him, and reliving that was just an absolute blast for me. And I'll have to admit, when the horses were going to the gate, I was getting nervous again, like I had to call the race again. And then I realized I'd already done it 5 years ago. I just had to watch.
Well, you chose the perfect words to punctuate the Triple Crown. I always wonder, I've had people ask me about that. They've asked me about some of the things that the rest of us do, which as a producer once told me, we're all vapor. You are the one etched in stone. The guy calling the race, they're always going to listen to that American Pharoah call. Larry Collmus forever will be saying, finally the one. My interview with Baffert, maybe a few people will listen to it. Maybe they won't. Maybe something I said leading up to the race. They may, any of us. But, the race guy, the guy calling it is the one that you're going to always remember. Gee, I didn't put any more pressure on you this weekend, did I, by saying that? I mean,
No, I don't think so. Not compared to the pressure of calling when Pharoah won the Triple Crown or when Justify won the Triple Crown. But I remember that week leading up to the Belmont, and I was having a conversation with the great Tom Hammond, our very dear friend. And I said, Tom, people have told me maybe I should just kind of wing the call of the Belmont. I shouldn't really, prepare anything that, and he put a stop to that right away. He says, in the voice of Tom Hammond, Larry, if you're going to be calling history, you better be ready. and he gave me some sound advice, and I just thought about what do you say in a moment like that, and it was pretty much say what people are all thinking. Finally, the one, the wait is over, and that's how I approached it.
Yeah, that was a perfect choice of words, and I don't know too many people that actually do wing it in the moment. Every announcer I've talked to, I think really good announcer, covering other sports, be an Olympic event or whatever, thinks of what they're going to say at that moment. I believe they do, or every now and then. I worked with Al Michaels on a boxing series once. I wanted to ask him, I never got around to it, if he really thought that out about, do you believe in miracles? Another one of the great lines of sports all time.
Maybe the greatest of all time. I don't know the answer to that, but it's etched in stone and one of the greatest sports memories for sure.
Yeah, I watched some of that back, and I forgot a lot of the things that happened on that trip. I didn't forget it, but it's there in your mind, and then all of a sudden it brings it forward when you hear it again. Oh yeah, of course. Even like some humorous things like Justin Zayat having an upset stomach after the Kentucky Derby. We had some fun with him in the Preakness about that, and some antacid and things, and just little things that you pick back up, just like watching any sporting event where you go, yeah, I remember that third down play, or I remember that that 3-2 pitch he kept fouling off till he got the hit. That's what's been fun watching a lot of this stuff for me.
Yeah, it was for me too. In fact, when you were interviewing Bob Baffert after American Pharoah won the Belmont, one of the things that I always remember was just at the end of the interview when Bob had to turn around and realize that Penny Chenery wanted to shake his hand and congratulate him, and we just got that on camera just in time. And to me, that was one of the greater moments, that the owner of Secretariat was there to congratulate Bob Baffert and winning the Triple Crown, and getting to see that was just so neat.
Yeah, that whole event, people have asked, I said, not just because it was the Triple Crown, obviously, so that was something that I wasn't even sure I would ever get a shot at interviewing a Triple Crown winner. I thought maybe John Service with Smarty Jones for me in 2004 might have been the best shot at that time. We've seen them come and go, and but the whole thing about that is, up there around most of those owners are very polite. It's almost like golf claps, and they're happy for you. after you win a Belmont Stakes, and there'll be a few extended hands-to-hand shake. But that day, first off, there's a deafening roar of the crowd, for I don't know how long it continued, Larry, but, where I was trying to interview Bob, there were people trying to climb over me just to touch him or shake his hand. It was like being in a mosh pit. And that's how excited everybody was about finally seeing a Triple Crown winner.
And that's what it's all about, the reaction of the fans after the race. And there was nothing further to say in the broadcast. At that point, you just wanted to just let the fans tell the story about what had just happened by their ecstatic roars. And I always enjoyed too watching some of people's homemade YouTube videos of them watching the race at home and people having celebrations at home while he won. I thought that was really cool. I couldn't get enough of watching that either. Just any different view I could possibly get of watching American Pharoah win the Triple Crown was just I just couldn't get enough of it.
And Larry will have the best view in calling the race this week at Belmont. And we had Mark Casse on talking to him about Tap It to Win, talking about some of the horses in the race. It's kind of interesting because he likes the track, and Mark was telling us like he had with Sir Winston last year when he won it. Obviously you need a good horse, but it's also good to have a horse that really likes the Belmont track because it's different than most every other track that a horse is going to run on.
Yeah, and he's a very versatile horse. He's won from a little bit off the pace, and then last time he went out there winging at Belmont, and he just crushed his competition at a strong 6-1 odds. So it's not like he beat an easy field that day with that price at 6-1. So he certainly, if he likes that racetrack, he's definitely got a shot in that race. It's great for Mark to now be the Hall of Famer, Mark Casse. Once he finally gets to get into the Hall of Fame next year, they had to put it off this year because of COVID-19. But next year he'll be officially put into the Hall of Fame, and he's certainly deserving of it.
Yeah, I told him he can milk this for like 2 years. Because I wasn't sure if they were going to try like do a Zoom or something like that and have it in it. I think it's best to just have the people there in person, so that'll be nice.
100%, I agree. I mean, and I'm sure that everybody that's getting into the Hall of Fame wants their friends and family to be there to watch it.
Well, my friend, I will see you this week at Belmont. I look forward to having our dinner before the big race and trying to keep that tradition going. And then, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a different kind, but it's going to be a Triple Crown race, and I'm excited. Absolutely.
Me too, Kenny, and looking forward to seeing you and Brittany out there and all the other folks in Stamford or wherever they're going to be. Hopefully we'll see them all live and in person at the Kentucky Derby.
All right. Thank you very much. Larry Collmus, the great race caller, who'll be calling the action for NBC this week at the Belmont Stakes. More on the Horse Racing Show after this. A few precious minutes to go here on this episode of the Horse Racing Show. You can go to YouTube, by the way, and check out all the horse racing shows that we've done, the 71 prior to this. Thanks again to Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse. He has Tap It to Win running in the Belmont this week. Larry Collmus will be calling the race for NBC. I will be up there. Starts at 3 o'clock Eastern, goes to 6. Race will go off probably around like 5:45 Eastern time. All right, guys, so it's a whole different world. 2020, just put a big asterisk beside it all, and especially any sports, not just horse racing, but anything else out there.
Yeah, I mean, everything's changed, especially with, standless or crowdless sports going on right now.
Yeah, as Larry Collmus mentioned, it's going to be kind of interesting. They're not going to be that roar of the crowd when the horses come charging around that big, long stretch at Belmont. But then again, it's going to be different everywhere for every sport. I don't think that the horses or the jockeys are going to mind when they get out there and they're going side by side, head to head, trying to win the race, just like the NASCAR guys, right? They're driving their cars. They're probably not looking up in the stands to see who's not there, or the few thousand, about 1,000, I think, were let in down at Homestead. They're just ready to try to win the race, and that's what it's going to be all about. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think Thomas and Ben will be watching.
Oh, yeah.
Got to keep your eyes on the prize.
That's right, and I'll be up there with, maybe 20 other people watching live, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a great challenge, and next week we'll talk more about this Belmont when we come back on the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thanks for tuning in.